I hope you can hear me from here without me having to stoop down too much. Good morning. Welcome for you all and for surviving till day 3. Congratulations. We're thrilled to invite you to a very different way to start towards the journey of ending our week with you, but with some very, very serious messages. So this session is all about innovation and collaboration with a twist. That's all I'm going to say, because I'm going to hand over to the maestro of this, which is Alex Steele. Alex, welcome to the AMIC conference, and the stage is yours.
Thank you. So before we start, before I even introduce myself, I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind, to come right to the front, because I need to be able to see you and almost touch you. So if you don't mind coming up, filling up the front, because we're going to have a little bit of interaction. So particularly the people right so far away at the back, if you would oblige and make me really happy and come to the front, that would be so nice. And actually, whilst you're on your feet, I don't know who's feeling brave this morning, but I'm going to ask for 6 volunteers to join me. There are 6 chairs up here. Now, I'm not going to tell you what we're going to do, but you don't have to be musical in any way to participate. But I'm looking for 3 men and 3 women, because I like sexual equality, to come on the stage and join us. So if anybody wants a life-changing experience this morning, these 6 seats are here. And I guess I can't do anything until I've got 6 people up here. So if that's a raised hand, please come forward. Please come forward and join us on the stage. You don't know what's happening. And in fact, my 3 colleagues here don't know what's happening either, because we've just met. And it's a mystery for everybody. So I'm feeling more loved here, okay? There's still plenty of space at the front. But and if you want to come from the back, I still encourage you, but I can just about see you. I'm very short-sighted, you see. So have I got 6 volunteers to join us? Hello, welcome to the stage. Let's give these people a round of applause straight away. Hi, good morning. Grab a seat. Good morning, thank you for coming. We've got, oh good, we're doing well up here, okay? So we've got 4, I need another 2 people. Hi, thank you for coming on the stage. Don't worry, it's going to be great. Thank you. I'll go shake your hand because you're brave. You're brave. We've got room for 1 more. Who's going to be the 6th person? We've got a 6th person? There he is. Right, good. Right, can I have my slides up, please? Do I have to click it? Oh, yeah. Right. Okay, I think we're ready to kick off. So we're here to conduct 6 experiments together in the art of collaboration and innovation. And I'm sure you're already brilliant at these things, but we're going to give you another take on this, which I think you will definitely find very useful. Some of the experiments will involve the musicians. And as I mentioned a moment ago, we've just met together as a group for the first time, and I'll tell you more about that in a moment. So they don't know what's about to happen, and nor do you. I think I only know a little bit about what's going to happen, because this is about risk, so I thought I would push us to the extreme even before we begin. You look beautiful there, my 6 volunteers. Thank you for coming up here. You're the luckiest ones in the room. So some of the experiments will involve us, the musicians. Some will involve my volunteers, and maybe some of you as well as we go along. And some will involve all of us together. I should just ask, I'm interested to know, but this is not in any way compulsory, but are there any musicians in the room at all? We've got some. Okay. What about of my volunteers? Any of you musicians? That's good. I'm pleased, because I prefer you to have no musical abilities whatsoever to participate in this. And quick show of hands, does anybody like jazz? That's not bad. That's not bad. Hey, look at that. Oh, that's good. And does anybody hate jazz? There's always one. Okay, we got you. We got you. And that's perfectly fine. So, I'm going to introduce myself first of all. So, this is me. I have a mixed life. It's like I still say to people, I'm not quite sure what I want to be when I grow up, because By day, I'm an organizational development consultant and an academic and a professor, and I work in different business schools and universities around Europe and beyond, and particularly in Asia, and lots of international development work in Uganda, particularly at the moment, and Bangladesh, Kenya, Colombia, Venezuela, mostly around entrepreneurship and innovation are the key things. However, before I did any of this, I grew up in a musical family, and I'm also a professional musician, so I'm always out playing gigs with great, cool guys like these three fellas you're about to be introduced to in a moment. And for many years, I had this double life, you know, organizational development consultancy and academic stuff by day, jazz by night. But over the last few years, I've been mixing it up a little bit, conducting a series of experiments with organizations and at conferences around the world. So thank you for participating in another one. And I'm writing a book about this at the moment, which I'll tell you a little bit about later, because you could all be superstars and feature in the book. So that's me. And so what I want to do is give you an insight into what's happening inside the brain of a jazz musician. That's as simple as that. What are the skills and behaviors that we have in our world that that definitely are relevant to the worlds that you live within? So we're looking for some ideas and inspiration from the world of jazz, specifically around skills and behaviors around collaboration and innovation that would apply to you and all the challenges you face. And I guess it's not just about what's happening inside the brain, it's also about, if you like, hearts and minds. So it's about the human connectivity between us that make us able to do the things that we do, the emotional intelligence we need to collaborate and innovate effectively. Okay, so the first experiment, we should begin straight away, is about the beginnings of collaboration and innovation. Because what I have with me are three amazing musicians, and I think I'll introduce them to you, and we should give them each a round of applause. You can stay seated, but give them a wave. First of all, on the double bass today, we've got Mr. James Austin. There he is. Give him a clap. And the reason James is here is because I was at the Cheltenham Jazz Festival a few weeks ago, and James appeared on stage with one of the most famous bass players in the world, Mr. Christian McBride. And I was so impressed, I said, James, come to Liverpool with me on the 13th of June. He goes, I don't know why you want me there, but I'll be there. So thank you for coming. Then I said, can you recommend a saxophonist? And the man next to me, I've never met in my life before until 30 minutes ago. Please give a big round of applause to Mr. Dan Spirit. Then I said, who can you recommend on drums? And it's a man I haven't seen for many years, and he's magically appeared. Please welcome Mr. James Bashford. So this is the first time we've met as a group, and the first time that first time I've met Dan. I haven't seen James on drums for many years, and I've only seen the other James live on stage with a very famous bass player. So I'm very pleased that they're here. Now, what you're about to witness is quite interesting from an organizational point of view, because you're witnessing, in a moment when we stand together and perform a song, you're witnessing us collaborating, coming together, forming a team for the very first time. So many beautiful things can happen during this coming together. We'll get to know each other. We'll develop trust for each other and empathy. A little bit of love might come out as well. That happens on the jazz stage. We will then, if you like, collaboratively brainstorm. You'll see us brainstorming. You'll see us design a product. You'll see us manufacture the product in real time and deliver it to the customer in the course of 3 or 4 minutes, which is the duration of the first song. Now, all the things that happen in the dynamics of our organization in your world might take many, many months to achieve, to come together for the first time, to design a product or service, to manufacture it and deliver it to the customer. So something magical will happen in a very short amount of time. And I think it's good to think about jazz as a language. It's quite different to other forms of music because of the improvisational dimension to it. So when you witness us coming together with our instruments, think of it as us having a conversation in the same way that you have conversations. So you don't need a script to have a conversation because you know the language. If you speak English or whatever your first language is, it's not difficult to have a conversation. And jazz is something similar. We have our own vocabulary, we have our own grammar, and even though we're meeting for the first time, we can still have a conversation with no script, with no rehearsal, and so on. So that's what you're about to see. That's quite exciting, and a little bit scary, and there are some risks involved, as you can imagine. I would say that probably 95% of what you hear in most of our songs is improvised, and maybe 5% is structure. So that's quite a big ratio, isn't it? And I'm guessing that in your worlds, I don't know where you're from exactly, but I'm guessing that the ratio might not be so extreme for any of you or for any of you. Normally people say, well, it's the opposite, actually. We have 95% structure, and we're allowed to improvise by about 5%. Would that be right? Maybe, okay. So you can tell me later if it's more radical. But ours is certainly very radical. Can you imagine living in a world where 95% is improvised? When I say 5% structure, it's normally that the original melody of the song provides the 5%, and then we improvise around the structure of the song. So let's dig into this a bit more. So it occurred to me as well, when we play jazz, it's not always what you might think of as jazz, whatever jazz is. What is jazz? We're happy to take any song from any genre and to improvise around it. And I thought, wouldn't it be great to find a song from a world which is not jazz to improvise on, so you can maybe hear how we improvise against the structure. And of course, the conference organizer said to me, could you play some Beatles? And I said, oh, okay, I wonder why. I think I know why. So I wanted to pick a song. In fact, I heard it on the radio a couple of days ago, which we all know very well, which is Can't Buy Me Love, Can't Buy Me Love. And I've never played it before, and certainly we've never played any songs together before. So I'm going to suggest to the band, if it's okay, that we try to play Can't Buy Me Love in a moment. Is that okay with you guys? Okay. Just in case they said, oh, I've never heard of that song before, I did scribble out on a bit of paper the chords, which is not even 5%. This is maybe 2%. There are no notes on here. So if you see anyone looking down at a bit of paper, that's the only preparation I did in case they're too young to have ever heard of this song. But everyone knows this song. Do you know this song? In your head. But I guess you haven't probably played it before. So, okay, we haven't played it before. Right. So just before we play this song, the first time we've come together ever, just to say we cannot play a song the same way twice. It only happens like this once. It's a very special occasion. It's like a conversation. If I said, can you repeat the conversation you had with that fellow at the bar last night, you could try, but it wouldn't be quite the same, would it? So this is a very special occasion because this is also a world premiere. Because every song in jazz is a world premiere. It's never happened before like this, and it will never happen again like this. And the only other thing I want to say is a comment about jazz etiquette. Now, in a classical concert, you wait till the end of the performance and you give some polite applause. In jazz, you don't have to wait until the end. If something amazing happens, if there's like a saxophone solo or a bass solo or a drum solo or a piano solo, and you go, whoa, you can give applause and clap whenever you wish. Is that okay? So don't be shy, okay? And you're on the front line there, so lots of applause from you will be appreciated. While you're here, you'll find out shortly, okay? But just relax. It's all going to be lovely and might change your life forever. So, guys, a round of applause, please, for my brand new Jazz Brothers. So, we are amongst friends here. So, you know, normally we're a bit quiet and we don't really say much. Now, we're amongst our jazz friends, so we can kind of communicate out loud, not in secret anymore, because they're going to get an insight into what's in your brain, okay, all of your brains. For this one, I think the original's in the key of C, but we're going to do it in the key of G, just because I happened to sit at the piano, it became G. And I've got a kind of vibe on it, and should we do a bit of a kind of intro thing around G, and then see what happens? All right. Wish us luck.
Cool.
Thank you very much. Thanks to the guys. You can grab a seat again now. My new jazz brothers, we met. Did you enjoy that strange interpretation of the Beatles? Okay, so I have a question, and we've got a roaming mic, I think, somewhere, if anyone wants to give us an answer, or from the stage. We've also got a mic here, which is the question, what did you observe in terms of skills and behaviors around collaboration and innovation? Is there anything in particular anyone would like to say? And if so, raise your hand. Or you've also, I'll give you, guys, if you grab that microphone there, you're welcome to use that spontaneously. That's the privilege you have by being on the stage. So you're welcome just to grab it and pass it around. If anyone in the audience would like to make a comment at this stage, just raise your hands. We've got it'll come to you in a moment. Yes, please.
My first observation is that you were taking the lead and the other musicians were watching you. So their eyes were on you most of the time, sort of looking for a sense of direction from you.
Yeah, okay. That's an interesting observation because in a sense you are right in that I was kind of creating a structure for this song, but it's also the fact that I was often letting go of control and passing the leadership function to other people in the band, particularly when we take a solo. So yes and no. Yes, I was structuring it and they were looking at me. However, I was often, as much as possible, trying to back off because I've got 3 amazing colleagues here, and in our world, we all have the opportunity to have our say during our meetings, if you call that a meeting. Okay, we've got some more hands going here.
Yes, in watching that, what struck me was how relaxed everybody was,
Yeah.
how confident they are in their own ability, that they maybe, as you said, know the language.
Yeah.
And even though perhaps a daunting thing, we're just going to make this up, but they all knew it was going to work.
Yeah, okay, so you're right. They are very cool guys, aren't they? And very relaxed. And
Very cool.
you see that with all professional jazz musicians. Even though it was a song we had never played before or not rehearsed, that confidence was there. We had a hand up down here, if we can grab a mic to... here we go. I was right, you did have your hand up, didn't you? Or you were just scratching your ear. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I was watching to see if there was any point where anything went wrong and to see what you did.
What did you observe?
There was one bit where a chord didn't quite follow on the piano.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure where to come back in after the drum solo, so there was a bit of hesitation from me there, but we kind of worked around it, you know, so that was cool. Because it was such a beautiful solo, I was swept away in the beauty, and then I thought, I don't know where I am anymore, so that was cool. It was my fault, because I was swept up in your beauty, so thank you for that. So it was cool. Yeah, okay, we've got more hands going up. We'll take another couple of questions. So who are the mic people? There we go. So we'll go there and then we'll go there. That'd be great.
For me, it was a real clarity about when you're leading and when you're supporting. So one person was clearly leading all the time, but everybody else was supporting them to make that.
Yeah, all the time.
And it was about listening. You were listening 90% of the time to each other.
Yeah, yeah. I might push that up to 100 actually. Okay, and we had a comment here.
Very similar. I was going to say I saw a lot of consideration of colleagues, like working out what they were doing, considering what their position was and how you could support them.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, there's lots of consideration, there's lots of trust, there's lots of empathy that grows quickly, and respect. And this whole notion, isn't there, of when people are doing their thing, you listen to them and you value their contribution to the conversation as well. No matter who it is, they've all got something valuable to say. Okay. Yes, please.
Can I just say that value was quite clear, that it was the overarching respect and value for the music itself, not just individual players, but they all obviously could see their contributions to the music itself. And that just came through in the faces and the body language.
Yeah, brilliant, okay. I mean, when we play, I mean, I guess our objective is to play something which sounds beautiful and it gives you joy and gives us joy. That's our remit, isn't it? No matter what the song or the style, we're just trying to make sense and find beauty in those notes and harmonies. Do we have? God, I'll take one more question, one more comment. Yeah.
Yeah, for me it was about the commonality of your purpose.
Yeah.
In that you're producing that, and the way in which everybody was so invested in the process that you were going through.
That's a great comment. Thank you for that. And I wanted to say then, so thank you for those comments. I wanted to say also this question here, which I'll answer myself. Are we like an orchestra? And the answer is no, not at all, because these people, every note they're going to play has been written before they arrive. So there's no risk, I guess, because they just know exactly what's expected of them. It's also a bigger organization. It's very hierarchical, and they have a conductor. They've got one leader. And of course, we don't have a conductor. We don't need a conductor. And I'll explore that a little bit more in terms of how our abilities to collaborate mean that we don't need one leader. We have this idea in jazz of distributed leadership. And we'll dig into that a little bit more, because we would say from our world that that's crucial to enable you in your teams to collaborate more effectively and to find opportunities for innovation. So let's move on to the second experiment, and it will pick up on some of the themes you were just commenting on. And one of you will be involved in this experiment now. I don't know which one yet. This experiment is about how we deal with the unexpected, because in life, things happen that we don't expect, and we have to deal with them. Or it might be an error. Things might go wrong, okay, which we deal with that as it happens. So when we are performing, your comment was about listening, and I think we are very good at listening. We have to be able to listen to each other all the time, otherwise it's not going to work. And I think what we have to try to do as well in that listening is be fully present and in the moment. So presence, being in the moment, is something some of us try to achieve when we do meditation and mindfulness. I don't know if any of you do that kind of thing. It's quite amazing, but not so easy because our minds wander. Similarly, if you reflect on how you are in a meeting when someone's talking and we should be listening to them, but sometimes we're thinking ahead. We're thinking, well, in a moment, I'm going to say something that's really important, and you're not therefore listening to what's being said by the person who's currently talking. And then when someone says to you, what did you think about what Dave said, and you can't really give a proper answer because you weren't listening properly. Or right now, some of you might be thinking about what you're going to have for lunch, and you should be focusing on me, or your phone's vibrate in your pocket, and it's very difficult, isn't it, to stay in the moment. However, I think we're very good as jazz musicians. We're not thinking about what just happened. We're not thinking about what we're going to be playing in a few bars, in a few beats time. We're just there in the moment. So that's the first thing. And then, obviously, if something happens that's unexpected, we are able to deal with it because we know it's happening in that moment. But the key behavior I want to talk about, which is something that might sound counterintuitive, it's our ability as jazz musicians to delay or to suspend judgment. Because we're taught, aren't we, as professionals and as leaders, that we should be quick thinking and we should make decisions and be good at very quickly and be good at critical judgment. However, I would suggest that from our world, the advice to you is not to judge things immediately, because we don't know exactly what's happened or the value of what has just happened. So that's something I want to explore for a moment. There's a jazz phrase which is, there's no such thing as a wrong note. I think Miles Davis said it, or maybe Thelonious Monk. Some jazz dude said it back in the 1950s and 60s. And is that true? And is that true in life? I think when something happens that we don't expect, what we tend to do in jazz is just we accept it, we don't dismiss it, and we play with the idea for a moment or two to see what happened. There was a great story of when the famous piano player Herbie Hancock first did a gig with Miles Davis, and he was quite young and quite nervous. Herbie Hancock, if you haven't heard of him, is a legendary piano player now in his mid-70s. And he wrote an autobiography recently. And he said in the preface of the book, in that first gig, a big audience, bigger than you, and he played the first chord, and all of the notes he played were wrong. He just missed completely because he was a little bit nervous. So Miles Davis, the famous trumpeter, turned round to Herbie Hancock in front of the audience as they were still playing, and he played back all the wrong notes, and they recreated the melody from the wrong notes, and they found something even more beautiful. So that's kind of a nice thing that we can do in our musical conversation, is to suspend judgment. And in the real world, I mean, there are thousands of examples of where great innovators have used this same approach, and I've just put 4 examples on the screen. The discovery of penicillin, it was an error. The discovery of the glue that made Post-it notes was an error from a failed carpet glue. The discovery of what is Teflon today was from a failed experiment with chlorofluorocarbons with DuPont. Even Kellogg's cornflakes, there was a stale batch of wheat, and it needed to be chucked out, but they experimented, they suspended judgment, and they found a way to cook it that was a bit more crunchy. And there's lots of it, hundreds of examples. So if these great innovators hadn't had this ability to suspend judgment, there are many, many great innovations we wouldn't be aware of today. And that's the spirit of jazz. Now, here is maybe the most crucial advice I've got to give you today. Because how do you translate this ability to suspend judgment into the way you collaborate, the way you speak to other people? And there are kind of 2 ways, in simple terms, there are 2 ways to respond to anything that's new or even an error. And many of us work in organizations which are what I've crossed out here, the yes but culture. So if you present a new idea to someone, they often say yes, but, and the but means I don't like this idea and I'm going to block it, and it destroys the idea. Does that make sense? Whereas the alternative is a response which is with the jazz way or an improvisational way, where you say yes and. You deliberately don't say but, because but closes it down, but and keeps it open. So we'll do a little test with one of my volunteers. Okay, I don't know who we're going to choose. I'll choose you because you're at the beginning. You haven't got to do anything. But if I said to you, where is your office, by the way?
Based in London, St. James's Park.
That's not very far away. Okay, so well, it is from Liverpool. So if I said to you, what if we set up a jazz club in your office every Wednesday afternoon? Okay, you've got a mic, haven't you? So we're going to come down to your office. Which company do you work with?
Into properties.
Okay, they're gonna love it. Okay,
Yeah.
so what if we do a jazz club 1 hour every Wednesday afternoon? Now you've got 2 ways to respond to this. Okay, you could say,
Yes, that would be great.
and say it with yes and.
Yes, and I think we should talk to the others in the organisation to hear what they feel about the idea.
See, I love this already. And when you said and, when you train yourself to say and, you see, you deliberately have to kind of add to it.
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas if your automatic response was yes, but, like many people do, it may have closed the conversation down. Okay. So let's do that, by the way. So thank you for that. Now, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because if you reflect on what kind of person are you more of a yes and or a yes but kind of person? Whoa, this is a bit deep, isn't it? But you know the answer to this. What is your natural way? And the team you work within and the organization you're a part of, what is the culture? Are you more of a yes and organization or more of a yes but organization? Okay, so this is really significant. And I want to play with this idea musically and in conversation in this experiment. But certainly, yes but is a big block. And this yes and philosophy is something I think that we are doing when we're performing. Anything that happens, we're saying, whoa, I didn't expect that, but yes, and let's go with that. Let's accept what's going on. Let's build upon it. And that's how jazz works. It's also how stand-up comedy works as well. So I've done sessions like this with comedians, and when they're in their flow of crazy ideas, they take anything that the audience or other comedians throw at them and build it into their story. It's a remarkable thing. So I want to see how we can do this in your world as well. An experiment I would encourage you to do next time you have a meeting is to get the yes but swear box on the table in the center of the room. And that, you say the rules of the next 30 minutes or the next 10 minutes, however long you want it to be, will be that you're not allowed to say yes but, no matter what comes up in the conversation. And if you do, we're going to fine you. At least £1 per bad word. Or bad words, yes, but. So I've done this lots of times with the companies and teams, and please try it when you next have a meeting, because it changes the nature and the feeling of the conversation. But what happens is people try to cheat. You can't believe it, but they try to cheat. So here are some examples of people trying to cheat. The first one was, it sounds so polite, they say with respect, okay? But that actually is really bad. That means I hate your idea. Okay, so that's £2, I think, fine for that one. Then someone tries to kind of play the game and cheat again, be even more polite, and they say things like, with the greatest respect. Now that means I really, really hate your idea. So I'd fine them £5 for that one. And loads of other cheats. People say things like, well, I hear what you say, but. That's the bad word, isn't it? But. Or things like, I see your point, but. So that's like yes, but. Or it's okay in theory, but. Okay, so I want to explore how can we let go of the yes but way of thinking, because this is crucial to innovation and the ability to collaborate effectively with your colleagues. So I think it's time for us to play something musical. And I was kind of thinking, well, how do you know when things go wrong? Because I guess if you're not listening to a lot of jazz, you don't know what are the wrong notes and what are the right notes. So I'm going to ask my colleagues to step up at this stage, and I'm going to suggest we're going to play Caravan. Are you okay with Caravan? And I'm going to ask one of you lovely people here to volunteer for this. And the job is simply, you're going to stand up, and your job will be to walk amongst us whilst we're playing and randomly poke us, gently. I had to do a risk assessment for this. So if you want Dan to go wrong on the sax, you give him a little poke, and he'll go really wrong. He'll go so wrong. Now, the rest of us, we haven't been poked. We're the non-pokies. We listen to what happened, to the error that one of you has just created, and we say yes and. So we say, I hear what just happened, I accept what has just happened, and I'm curious and experimental. We're going to build on this idea, because where might it take us? Is that okay? So that's for any of us that haven't been poked, we go with the poke. because what we don't do is we don't kind of ignore it and go, ay, ay, ay. We just kind of, we go, that's a crazy thing that you just did. Let's go there. Let's get ourselves dirty and messy and find out what beauty there is in the mess. Wow. So which one of you would like to be the poker? I don't mind who would like to volunteer from the 6 of you. Okay, round of applause for Mr. Poker. Thank you. I'll shake your hand again. So is that okay? You poke anybody at any time. If you poke someone and you liked the impact you had, you can go back and poke them as many times as you like. Is that okay? No. The only thing I would say is just give it enough time to kind of bubble up a little bit. Let us kind of recover and then keep it going. So you can poke everyone at least once, if not multiple times. Okay? Don't give us a hard time. Okay? So your job, ladies and gentlemen, is simply to watch what happens. How do we have this yes and conversation? So what we'll do as well, guys, I think we'll start with the melody, but as soon as we get the first poke, I think we have to drop the melody and go with the poke. And somehow we'll get back to the end at some stage. All right. Watch carefully. Wow. That was a lovely bit of poking. Guys, you all okay? Any injuries? You're okay? How was that? Okay? Now, so grab a seat again, guys. And I should apologise before every one of these experiments now, because I did some nasty things to these guys. But they were really good. Lovely poking. Now, I'd like you to think, I don't know what you thought of that. I can't even dare to ask you. But hopefully you saw how we were responding. And well, actually, I'll tell you what. It made us play in a really way out kind of way. I kind of liked it. So maybe the 5 of us could go on tour together. Would you be up for that? Every night, just going, That'd be really nice. So you can reflect for a moment about what you saw and how that relates to your world. But even better than that, I want to kind of bypass this. I want to do an experiment with all of you, a 3-minute experiment. And I'm going to ask you to talk to the people next to you in the audience, or for you up here, just talk in pairs, so 2, 2, and 2. And for those others of you around, mostly talk in pairs, but if it doesn't work out, talk with a group of 3. And I want you to feel what it's like to have just had the experience that we had on the stage through conversation. So you're going to have a yes and conversation. And maybe this is the first time this has ever happened to you in your life. And you might be thinking, a yes and conversation, this is going to be easy. So let's see, can you, imagine you had a swear box in front of you that said no yes buts or cheating that means yes buts for only 3 minutes. So the experiment requires one of you to start the conversation with the phrase, wouldn't it be great if? Now, your conversation can go anywhere. It can be about issues in your sector. It could be about issues in your organization. But if you're sat next to a stranger, maybe that's not so relevant. Maybe then if you're talking to a stranger, it could be about bigger issues about society, politics, the environment, the economy, Brexit, Mr. Trump, whatever you like, okay? And one of you starts by saying, wouldn't it be great if? And make this something that, is a little bit radical. That often, if you'd said this in the normal environment, people would go like, whoa, I don't think that's yes, but. But you cannot say yes, but for 3 minutes. And as the conversation develops, I want you then the other person in the conversation or the other people to say, and wouldn't it be great if we did this also? And see how you can build the conversation. Because yes and means I hear what you say, I accept what you say, and I will build upon what you say. Are you ready? You've got 3 minutes. Wouldn't it be great if? A yes and conversation. If anybody slips up with yes, but, give them the evil eye. Slap them, poke them, say, don't do that, get back on track. 3 minutes, wouldn't it be great if, starting now? Okay. Your 3 minutes has come to an end. So if I could ask you to pause your conversations for a moment. And this is always difficult to get you back after such a beautiful experience. I've got some roving microphones, I think, ready again somewhere, perhaps, wherever they are. And I'm curious to know many things. And see, yes and's such a beautiful thing. I want to know, the most important thing is, how did that feel? That's the first question, if anyone wants to tell me how that felt. And if you also want to tell me what you were discussing, if it's not too crazy, we'd like to hear it as well. So that could be from anyone up here. Yeah, come on, grab that mic. My special 6 people up here. How did it feel?
Hello.
Hi.
It was a little bit difficult because at some point, Tayo asked a question. What was it? It was, oh yes, would it be great when we finish the leadership course that we form an alumni, and so then we can go to universities and other companies and tell them about the course. And even though my answer was positive, I said yes, but Julia mentioned it this morning as part of the leadership group, and the answer was positive. I wasn't going to kill the conversation, but I said yes, but.
Oh, so was there something deep underneath this then? Something you have to reflect on maybe to even be even more positive? And did you have a comment as well?
I find that to say yes and requires thinking, whereas yes but can be an automatic response. So I think it forces you to think about what the other person has said first before responding.
Okay, that's a really nice answer.
She did say yes but twice, so she owes me £2.
Oh yeah, £2, yeah. So it's interesting, isn't it? It does take practice to do this, and I recommend you really try to practice. You can make it a game with the swear box in a meeting. But in fact, I found it affects every conversation in your life, because it might be how you talk to your husband or your wife or your children. We have this yes but thing floating around all the time. Be aware of it and see if you can catch yourself and be more of a yes and kind of person. Were there any other comments sort of down here about how did it feel? Yeah? Okay.
Oh. Sorry.
Was it? No?
No, not from here.
Yeah, we got one.
I found it slowed the conversation down.
Okay. Was that a good thing or a bad thing?
Yeah, it was a good thing because you did have to reflect more on what was said, and you were firstly conscious of not using the B word, and then you'd had to build yourself, yes, and so you had to come up with something. And
so slowing things down.
That gives you more thinking time, and leap in with a yes, B.
Okay, I like that. That's really good.
Leap in with a yes and.
The general conversation, the comments I get from people are that it isn't always easy. And what I mentioned before, I'm writing a book, this is very much about what happens next when you go back to your organizations, when you are much more mindful of having a yes and conversation. What are the consequences? And from the interviews I've had with people that have engaged in these sessions over the last few years, many have got stories to tell me about radical changes in morale at the simplest level in the teams, but also the development of new products and new services and increased profitability, all from dropping the yes but. And I should say, it's difficult. I don't know exactly what you discussed. Sometimes it's difficult because you might be thinking, oh, I want to say no or yes, but I'm going to go with it for 3 minutes. And what we're saying here is this is not, you can eventually say no and stop the idea. What we're saying is, but please, before you destroy the idea, keep it going for as long as you possibly can, because somebody might say something that has got so much value in it that we just hadn't seen before. So I think it's a really, really crucial thing. Okay, let's continue. Experiment number 3 of our 4 experiments is about cultivating a beginner's mind. Now, this is something interesting, also something that might be counterintuitive to you, as we said before, about suspending judgment. And this means, what's the opposite of a beginner's mind? The opposite of a beginner's mind is an expert's mind. And so what I'm asking you to do here in a conversation is to let go of your expertise. And I think as jazz musicians, we have to always be mindful of what we do know and what we don't know. And if we can actually think in a beginner's mindset, it helps us to grow and explore and experiment and be curious in a way that we can't do if we think we know it all. Okay, so this is the key thing. There's a great phrase which helps to dig into this a bit more, which is, in the mind of the expert, there are few possibilities. In the mind of the beginner, there are many. Now think about that for a moment. That's quite profound. And I want to explore what that means. What I'm saying to you is that in certain circumstances, in a commercial context, what would happen if you dropped your expertise, expert's mindset and looked at the world through the lens of a beginner? Now, we all value when real beginners come into our teams because they always ask kind of crazy questions, and we have to deal with that in however we think it's appropriate, hopefully in a yes-and kind of way. But how is it possible for us as experts to let go of our expertise? So beginner's mind means being more experimental, being more curious. Curiosity, I think, is really crucial. Being a beginner is also something about vulnerability. We've got to be prepared to be a little bit more vulnerable because we expose ourselves in certain ways when we kind of acknowledge that we don't know the answer to something. Because as an expert, you might not know the answer to something, but you kind of just kind of sidestep that. But to say, I don't know, however, let's find out together with curiosity is a big step for many, many experts. And what do we do? Here's the expert, and there's the beginner. What kind of things might you do to engage with beginner's mind? The obvious thing is new learning. Okay, so we go on programs, we learn new stuff. Maybe it's relearning stuff we've looked at before, we've forgotten, haven't practiced. We should bring it back into our practice regime. However, the most significant thing I think we need to do, and this is a musical thing as well as a life thing, is, I don't know if this is a real word, but unlearning. Now as musicians, we kind of develop ways of playing, good habits and bad habits, and sometimes we have to let go. There was the famous story of Sonny Rollins in 1959, and he wanted to unlearn the saxophone, and he went underneath the Williamsburg Bridge in Manhattan with his saxophone. He disappeared. He took a sabbatical. He disappeared not for a few days or a few weeks or a few months, but he was under that bridge every day for 3 years, and he came back in 1962. It was a serious bit of unlearning he did. Now, how can we unlearn? That's the big challenge. And it's also, I guess, it's about breaking habits, breaking autopilot. We all are guilty of this. We do things in certain ways, the same way, over and over again. And as musicians, that's something we could fall into if we're not careful. We don't want to be playing in autopilot, do we, ever? But some musicians do. If they're not really practicing properly, and you listen to them, you go, yeah, it's a bit boring. That sounds like the last time they played that song. We can't play a song the same way twice, and the feel will change. We are continually learning, relearning, and unlearning simultaneously. This is the challenge. Now, what does this feel like? I want to give one of my special guests here an experience that you will never forget. I can only take one of you for this experiment. Because I'm curious to know, what would happen if a real beginner joined the band? Now, whoever is going to volunteer for this, one of you, I'll tell you what you're going to do. First of all, to be eligible, you must never have played a musical instrument before. Secondly, what's going to happen is you're going to join me on the piano. We're going to be sitting together, and think of all the things that we have said so far this morning. So it's hard for a jazz musician to say the word morning. I don't think you... It's just like last night still, isn't it? I still can't say it. Morning. And you're going to be sat on the piano with me, and there's no such thing as a wrong note. It's going to be the most yes-and conversation you've ever experienced in your life, because nothing can go wrong. You will feel empathy and love and trust. Lots of love will come from us, okay? And we're going to start the song as a piano duet. And then I was going to say, we'll all come up on stage together, but let the piano begin with the beginner and then come into the conversation. And this will be 100% improvised with no structure whatsoever, okay? All that we would want from somebody, in fact, maybe one of you can decide right now. So if you grab the microphone and pass it to which one of the six of you wants to answer the question. But I want to, what's the name of the song? We want a name for the song. It could be something that represents some emotional thing with some joy or something in it, or bluesy or anger or a colour, or... What's the title? We want a title. You could pass the mic over and give us the title.
Rage of the Moment.
Rage? Rage of the Moment. Wow, okay. Yes, and we will use that title. Rage of the Moment. I like it. So... which one of you, and remember, you must never have played anything before on any instrument, which one of you would like to come and sit with me on the piano? Yes, a round of applause for you. Come on. So, guys, if you stand up as well, but we'll just be ready to listen at the beginning. So, welcome to the stage again. You're very brave. What's your name?
Maria.
Maria, thank you so much. So, you never played the piano before? Okay, and she's not joking. You don't know her as a famous like concert pianist on television every week? No. Okay, so if you sit down with me, we're going to share this stool, and all I'm going to say to you is, we just want to. I'll play down here. You play up there. Just play the black notes only. Okay. One by one. So what you can do, you can use single notes. You can use many notes. You can use single fingers or many fingers. You can use your right hand or your left hand separately, or you can use those together. Okay. So basically everything is possible, from single notes to many notes to left or right or both hands. Okay. We'll start this song off. Do you know that I think before the rage comes, we have to explore the beginning, the beauty in the chaos, and the rage will rise. But then the rage will go again. I think we'll find some solutions to this rage, because I don't think you're an angry person, are you? No. No. Okay. So this song is called "Rage in the Moment." Okay, and it will start in a peaceful way before we get angry later. But then the anger will go again. All right. So, wow, we went. So, before I say anything, how did that feel?
I just had no control at all. I was like, I couldn't even press the black keys at some point.
Do you mean because where did the control go?
I didn't know what to do. So it was just press the keys, and then I was just trying to follow the music, but I just didn't know where it was going, so I didn't know what was it I had to deliver. So it was like totally unknown environment for me.
Well, I thought you did really, really well. And so I noticed sometimes there was maybe you were a little hesitant, but what was interesting, I think, was that every note you played, you were very quiet. But we listened to every single note you played. And not only were you the beginner, in many ways you were the leader, because when you moved, we followed you. So even though you didn't think you knew what you were doing, everything that you did, we said yes and to, and it became really nice. And when you...
I followed after. Like, I saw you playing double keys, and I was like...
That was really impressive. So, yeah, so I thought we had to get some rage in there. So I made some rage, and you followed. So you were brilliant. So you were leading, and then you followed as well, which as a beginner was a very special thing, because many beginners would not be listening in that way. So thank you for listening so gently. So a round of applause. I think that's fantastic. Thank you so much. If you grab a seat. You guys grab a seat as well, actually. And how was that for you guys? Did you enjoy that? It was made us. You listened beautifully. It was very, very nice. Okay. So, and I think with that, I mean, what just happened? It's an interesting thing we could discuss for hours. But I mean, I guess, are there any comments? I mean, particularly from any of my special panel up here, is there some value, or what is the value of exploring beginner's mind inside yourself? That's and we've got an answer here as well. And I want, what do you think? Is there some value in exploring this really in yourself and in the people around you in your teams? Do any of you have any comments on that?
I think Maria had some hidden talents, because I think she brought out the beauty, more beauty in your music. And I think it's really good if someone is a beginner to actually let them lead sometimes, because you might learn something different from them.
Okay, that's really good. I agree. That's good. Anyone else want to make a comment?
I will give you another perspective. I think.
Yeah.
Because it is very easy to go on the path you already know, and you do it so automatically. It's very difficult to step out of your normal comfort zone.
It is.
And saying yes, but it automatically forces you almost to think differently.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's really good.
And also bringing, especially younger people in, that obviously can have much more novel ideas, contemporary ideas, which older, more experienced people can learn from.
Okay, so I think there's two things here. So there's obviously, how do we treat real beginners, because they're amazing, and they can ask crazy questions, and they can prod things, go, what's that, and why does it do that? And in addition, what I'm also saying to you is, how can you encourage yourself to also think in that way? How can you refresh your thinking to look at the world yourself through a beginner's eyes? And we've got a comment here, if we can grab a microphone. Thank you.
I thought one of the most interesting things was the way that you gave her very clear parameters before she started. You said, you only play the black keys, you play up here, but within these parameters, so as the expert you said, within these parameters you are free to explore and do whatever you want, but it was just clear and simple, and then the freedom was there, and I just can't believe how beautiful it was. It was so gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
And even though she felt maybe there was that uncontrol she wasn't used to, she was able to get right in there and immediately give us something.
Brilliant. That's
wonderful.
Great feedback. Yeah. That's our mission, is to find beauty and joy in every moment, as we should be doing in life. So imagine if you could do in life what just happened on that piano. Wow. That's beautiful. So thank you for that. That's great. I think we've got one comment there, and then we've got time for one more experiment.
This might just be my opinion, because I am honestly a crazy beginner, like you mentioned. But I saw a third type of answer, apart from the yes and or the yes but. I saw an answer of yes or being displayed on the piano, where you'd evolve from what the beginner would throw at you and present another idea from which the beginner could grow.
Yes.
And then the beginner could choose to accept the idea and go along with it and transition, or continue and stick around. And I thought that was very interesting, of seeing what I felt was a third type of response.
Yeah, that's really good observation. So there was that interaction meant the conversation wasn't one way, and as we saw, the beginner responded in a beautiful way as well. Thank you. Right, we're going to do our last experiment. We started a few minutes late. We'll finish a few minutes late. And this now, of course, there's 4 of you in our expert panel that haven't been up here yet. So the remaining 4 are involved in this final experiment. What is it? This is about the idea of distributed leadership. And it's the idea that we are very good in the jazz team at stepping forward, being the leader when we need to be, whenever that happens to be. We don't know when it's going to happen, but it happens, and someone steps up. But then we're also very good at stepping back letting go of control, trusting the people around us, trusting that someone else will step forward into the leadership role. And our job as leader then is simply to let go and to trust and empower others around us. Now, what are we going to do? So we like this idea of distributed leadership, and also about, we call it flatter structures. It's about non-hierarchical working. So I want 4 of you in a moment to experience what it's like to be inside a team with distributed leadership and with a much less hierarchical mindset. And I won't talk about this in any detail at all, but there's lots of research and practice about alternatives to hierarchy. There's something called heterarchy, which you can see on the screen. There's something called responsible autonomy. It sounds a little bit kind of crazy, but it's what jazz is. More current than this, there's new practice around something called holacracy. I don't know if you've heard of holacracy. I work with many organizations that choose to operate and manage themselves and their systems in very loose, more jazz-like kind of ways. So I'm not going to talk about that at all, other than if anyone's interested, I can send you some information about these alternative models. But what I want to do is get 4 of you now to experience what it would feel like to work inside such an organization as a way of collaborating better and a way of promoting innovation, which you may not have experienced before. And what are we going to do? I'm going to ask the 4 musicians to take their places and have a little bit of space behind you, because the 4 of you that haven't been up yet, each of you has to stand behind a musician of your choice, and you will control them. And you can do 3 things to your musician. I have some hats here. If you put a hat onto the head of the musician, you make them into the leader. And when you have a hat on, that means you take an amazingly, massively beautiful solo whenever the hat goes on your head. If you remove the hat, that was option 1. Option 2 is remove the hat, but put your hand firmly on the shoulder of the musician. And when you've got the hand on the shoulder with no hat, that means you're given permission to support or to follow and not to lead. So those normally are the main 2 things. Leading with the hat, or no hat, hand on shoulder, means supporting or following. And just for fun, you've got option 3, which is if you let go of your musician, so there's no physical contact, you switch them off. Okay? I don't think you can have that option in the real world. It would be quite good if you could turn people off in a meeting. But in our world today, you can play with us in that way. So can I ask the musicians to step forward, and can I ask the 4 people who haven't been up yet to stand behind the musician of your choice? So I'll need someone over here as well. And just be careful of some of the debris. Oh, and you need hats as well. So you've got your hat. Thank you. If you pass them round. Right. There we go. So that's for you. Right. So has everybody got a musician to control? If you stand right behind your musician. Okay, now watch carefully, ladies and gentlemen, to see what really happens. Now, the 4 of you you're in the same position that we were in 1 hour ago. You haven't had a conversation about this. You haven't had a rehearsal. There's no script. You're going to have to be fully present and in the moment right now. And you can obviously do your own thing with your musician, but it might be useful as the song progresses to kind of try in some way to look or communicate with each other, okay? We'll do a blues in F, by the way, guys, if that's all right. I'll count us in a minute. And just to say, you can experiment then between different ways. For example, mostly we have 1 leader when we're performing. But what happens if you've got 2 leaders or more? So it's going to sometimes it could be really boring. If they forget to make anyone lead, we'll just be going, okay. But if you go a bit crazy, which you're welcome to do and experiment with us, what happens when more people are trying to lead at the same time? Just also musicians, if it happens that we go quiet in the middle, if they turn us all off, let's not stop in our heads. Let's keep the blues going until we get switched back on. Okay, so if it feels like it's ended prematurely, let's not stop in our heads until someone gets switched back on. All right? Can I ask all the controllers to put a hand on everyone's shoulder, which gives us permission to begin? I'm going to count us in, but then we're completely under your control. That was a crazy song. Controllers, tell me what happened there. Can you tell us how you did that? They did a really good job. How did that work for you? Do you want to make any comments about how that worked?
We seem to be going round in a circle.
And also, I think we quickly decided that we're going to use communication eye contact to communicate who should be putting the hats on to get someone to lead. And then when we wanted the hands off, also eyes as well, and the head.
We were giving ground, I think, inviting as the change. So it was kind of a motion of someone's had a go and then someone else needs to have a go. And it was actually quite good because you were listening into the music as you were doing it and kind of trying to fit it in appropriately.
Okay. Any other comments from you? Was that okay? So what was interesting was you were very, very polite, I thought. And you had a system straight away. As you said, there was a circular thing happening. So they didn't treat us too badly, I don't think. No, I was waiting for you to abuse us in that way, and it didn't happen. And are you okay? You any psychological scarring as a result? You're okay. You're okay. So thank you very much. If you just would grab a seat, because we've almost come to the end, I think. So a round of applause for the controllers. Oh my God, it's quite late. Right, well, we're going to finish, I think. So I just want to say, in terms of what you just observed there, please reflect on, how do you organize your teams? What are the alternatives to hierarchy? And in what ways can you practice these ideas of distributed leadership and letting go of control as a leader, encouraging those around you to step forward? And maybe what we should do in a yes and kind of way is organize part 2 of this session for your next gathering. Or we could go on a world tour, couldn't we, to visit all of these fine people in all their offices for parts 2 and 3 and 4. So I'm going to summarize. You guys stay there because we're going to do just 2 choruses of a blues to say thank you. Just wanted to say, first of all, thank you very much for participating in these 4 experiments this morning. You've been great, and particularly thank you to the 6 crazy people that sat up there, not knowing what was going to happen. We've had a bit of a journey through the jazz brain and the jazz heart, the hearts and minds of jazz musicians. I hope my colleagues have found that interesting as they reflect on what it means to be a jazz musician, as well as all of you. In the first experiment, we looked at trust and the beginnings of collaboration and empathy and love. I keep saying that word. In experiment number 2, the key thing about suspending judgment, dealing with novelty, dealing with the unexpected, dealing with error, the yes and approach to life. Please practice it. Do that experiment with the yes and or the yes but swear box. Let me know what happens. Experiment number 3, for all of you, think like a beginner, act like a beginner, encourage those around you to think and act like beginners again, about curiosity, about unlearning and letting go of expertise. And lastly, what might your organization look like to enhance collaboration if you experimented more with alternatives to hierarchy and distributed leadership? So, please remember all these ideas. If anything amazing happens when you get back to work, send me a message and let me know, and you could be in the book. And all I want to do otherwise is to thank my colleagues. We'll start with Stay in F, another blues, a walking bass, just with James. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So please put your hands together, please, for on the double bass, Mr. James Austin. He's amazing. On the drums, please give a big applause to Mr. Jim Bashford. They sound good, but who's the third one? Please give a big round of applause on the saxophone to Mr. Dan Spirit. My name's Alex Steele. You've been wonderful. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Alex, thank you very much to you and to the band and to our colleagues who are just leaving the stage. A really fun way to deal with a quite serious issue. I hope you all enjoyed innovation in this session as well as the subject that it covered in terms of innovation. Thank you. So I'm now going to ask you to have brunch, which should be an easy task. We would like you to go to the exhibition hall for that and to be back in here at 12 o'clock, please. So one final thank you to Alex and the band and our volunteers. Thank you.